You know, when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, you're an example of what I want to grow more into.
Why is she such an amazing human?
I mean, really.
Just how slow she was with answering and everything. I'm like, oh my God, you're
She's
just
like
like,
so thoughtful.
I
Like, you're such a
know.
National Geographic photographer.
There was a photograph of a person that was like that. It's literally her.
Today's guest is someone I have admired for a very long time. Amy Toensing is a documentary photographer whose work with National Geographic has literally taken her all over the world, from the last cave-dwelling tribe in Papua New Guinea to the landscapes and people of the American West. When I met her and her husband, Matt, I was coordinating / mentoring for National Geographic Photo Camp. Print media was still thriving. And we could basically like throw a dart at a map and say, we want to work with youth in Rwanda. And Nat Geo was like, great, pick a Nat Geo photographer you want to lead the workshop. And then we'll find an NGO that's working with youth there and we'll put you all together in this soup. And then it would culminate in a slideshow for the kids' communities. I met Amy and Matt at the one in Africa that I did with them. But what really sets her apart isn't just the places that she's been, it's how she sees people. Her images, to me, don't document just a moment, they hold it still. They let you feel something, whether she's photographing Indigenous communities in Australia or waterways in Maine. There's this deep respect in her work that makes you stop scrolling and actually pay attention. She's been doing this work for over 2 decades, shot more than a dozen features for National Geographic. But if you ask her, she probably will tell you she's been winging it the whole time, camera in hand and probably heart wide open. I'm so stoked to have you here, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Piper. I'm really honored that you and David asked me to come here. Thank you so much. And that was a really nice introduction. You just made my week. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing okay here.
You're doing okay.
You killed it. You killed it. Your work is so amazing, by the way. I did a huge deep dive, and so it's been great to
thanks,
become familiar with it.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And Piper, oh my gosh, I loved working with you. It was way too short. It was way too short of a stint, a chapter in our little lives. And David, how do you and Piper know each other?
Piper used to go see my band when we were like 19. She was like a friend of a friend
That's
who was in the band, and like we hung for like hard for like a summer.
Where? In DC?
Indianapolis, where we both went to high school. Yeah.
We both grew up in Maryland. And then, I mean, I scooted to California for 18 years and came back last year and connected with Piper. I wanted to talk about coaching. And she's like, well, I've been a coach and this is where I went. And that's how we got reconnected. We've known each other for a long time, but have a very large gap in between of not really talking to each other at all.
But similar journeys, which we're going to talk about today in the like creative professional realm, lots of different directions, lots of varied experiences, and then coming back to a more health and wellness space with coaching. And so we came up with this idea of let's talk to other people about the wild, wonderful mental and creative journey of these unusual life paths where you're absolutely sure that you want to do something, all the things, but you really have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah. Or what's next, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Amy, again, I'm so excited to have you on the show. I've been such a huge fan of your work since our paths crossed like probably over 15 years ago. Maybe, I think it was Chad. We were doing a National Geographic photo camp with USAID, and you've spent literally decades documenting stories of people's connection to culture, land, resiliency. So to say you probably have shot millions of images might be an understatement. But I want to start with this question as a former photographer myself. What's one image that's always stayed with you? Not necessarily because it was the cover shot, but maybe because it was something more meaningful.
Good question. And you're not a former photographer. You're never a former photographer.
That's true. It's true. I photograph every single day still.
Yeah, it evolves. So I think, I mean, that's such a big question, right? Because there's so, and it depends on where maybe a photographer is at in their life and their journey as a visual storyteller. But the image that immediately popped up in my head when you started to ask that is an image I made quite recently, actually. And I made it while doing a story for National Geographic on a canoe path that goes from the Adirondacks up to the tippy top of Maine to the Canadian border. It's 740 miles long. And there was, I worked on it probably for about 5 weeks. The stories are getting shorter and shorter in Geographic, but there was a um, part in the Adirondacks where I met a family, and they invited me and my family back to a spot on a lake, on Saranac Lake. And Saranac Lake is this beautiful, beautiful part of the canoe path, but it's also this beautiful part of the Adirondacks. And there's campsites on islands on the lake. So you can only get there by boat, or it's a shoreline that you can only get there by boat. And a lot of the local families, uh, they kind of pool together and they reserve the campsites over like a whole month. And then
Oh,
they
wow.
kind of tag team, like they'll have like 4 sites that they book, they reserve it well in advance. And then they all just stay there, and people might come and go because they have to go back to work, but another family will come in. And so he was like, come join us. And I was like, oh, this will be a great part of the story. And I'm going to try going there as a mom.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's so weird. That's making me cry. I have no idea why that's making me cry right now. Um, I know you guys are like,
Totally
"Oh,
fine.
she cried."
Yes. Success.
Woo, first question. Yes.
No, I don't know why. I think because the journey to become a mom, I think especially with my generation and the like older generations than me, probably not so much moving forward, I hope. But there was this feeling of I can't become a mom if I'm trying to be a female creative, especially journalism. It just wasn't, there weren't a lot of uh, mirrors around that. There weren't a lot of role models. A lot of the women that were ahead of me did not build families. And it was kind of this undercurrent that if you became a mom, you were done. It was going to be. And then I slowly started to see other women in photojournalism that were doing it, and they were doing fine. And I took that plunge, and it's been the most beautiful part of my life. But there was a moment where I made a picture with my daughter right there and my husband right there. And I've made a lot of images with my husband right there. For better or for worse. We're always like
We'll talk about that.
but to have her there and to have it be one of my images, like really one of my favorite images, whether she was there or not, but to have it, to know that I can enter into that space, that creative space, and have her there is just, it means more than anything to me.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
beautiful.
I mean, especially because now you have this, I've always thought of images. Yeah, we're capturing moments in time and then poof, that moment's gone. But it sort of encapsulates all of the roles that you are, all of the facets of who you are in this world and who you are to other people, all in one moment in time.
Yeah, and the image is a lot about girlhood. Um, it's a group of girls, friends that are all daughters of these families that come to camp together, and they found a dead fish. And, they're surrounding it and analyzing it, and it's got the sort of the black water of the Adirondacks in summer and the dripping green. And it's just, yeah, so it's also just about being female too, which is special.
A lot of your work is like features youth. It might not be about youth, but it brings in the element like, hey, there's youth here, right? Like there's just a part of this story. They're an important part of this story as well. And, even your mentorship and teaching. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, was that something that you set out to include in your work, or how did that evolve?
Piper, I have no idea, but it's funny, like I'll start to edit a story, like when you're working on a project, you take these moments throughout the project to be like, okay, I'm going to do a tighter edit and see where I'm at and whittle stuff down. And I'm always like, Amy, too many kid pictures, too many kid pictures. Like I'm always monitoring myself with that. And, I don't know, it's obvious, right? Like it's just, there's something beautiful. I think there's something beautiful about being 10 years old, and my editor and mentor, Susan Welchman, said that to me at some point at the beginning of us working together. She was like, you're really drawn to those 10-year-olds. Like there's around that age, like there's something so vibrant and wondrous and in that space. And I love seeing it. I love seeing it with my camera. But I don't know. That's about as deep as I can go with it.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, it is an age where they still have the wonder and awe of the world, but they're also beginning to have an awareness of what's going on. It's this really beautiful balance that I think, from a photography perspective, like we're always drawn to subjects that help us tell more of the truth of the moment. And I think 10-year-olds, for whatever reason, for all the reasons we just said, do a really good job of mirroring that in their facial expressions, how they're interacting with a circumstance, what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. They're interesting. Endlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their like ability to have, well, it's like their brain isn't fully functioned, so they can't filter.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, this is what I think, or like, this is happening. And there is no anything else. And if we could all live like that at some point in time in our life again as adults.
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of also want to ask too, and this is maybe, it's connected to it, but I'm curious, like, when did you remember getting called to do photography work? And maybe even specifically with the intention of storytelling?
It just was instant. Like the first moment that I was given a camera, I think it just instantly gave me another way to, like, it was almost like a portal opened for me to understand the world. Not in any sort of like high art way or anything special with like what I think I was making. It was purely for me to suddenly be like, like almost like discovering music as we're growing up, where suddenly you have an outlet for your emotions. I think, at least for me, I think that does that for a lot of people with music.
Sure.
And the camera, that framing, that 35 millimeter frame, for some reason, like opened a whole space for me to understand the world.
Sure.
And that's really where it started with me. I never thought I would have it as a career. I never thought it wasn't ever something that I wanted to do. It was more just like, oh yeah, that camera's mine and it's just going to stay here with me because it makes me feel better. And then luckily it graduated into being my life, but it was not something that I ever thought I could have a career. And I just liked it.
Like, this is my creative whoopee.
my friend, you know?
Yeah, it's the best way to start any creative career, in my opinion. What do you think made you want to make it more into a storytelling practice for you?
It was my senior year in college, and I had an advisor who was like, "Hey, there's this program in Portland, Maine, and they're like, you could go there as a writer, a photographer, or radio, and learn that skill for telling stories." And she knew that I was kind of in photography, but again, it wasn't something that I understood how to turn into a career. It just was my friend. It was just my thing.
Sure.
And I think, and I also was really into people, just telling stories about people. And I was really into poetry. I was really into like interpreting the world. And she was like, "Why don't you check this out? Maybe it would be cool." And it was called the Salt Institute for Documentary Field Studies in Portland, Maine. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm going to apply to the photography track because I love photography and it's about storytelling. That sounds really interesting. And that was where everything just kind of went. It clicked. And it was a lot about the teacher that I had there, Todd Hoffman, who was very much in the school of documentary photography and the ethics of it. And we did all black and white, Tri-X 400 and fiber printing. So it was about the field work, and then it was about the care of the negative and the fiber print, which is an archival process, the archival fiber print, I guess I should say, which is a whole process and a discipline in the dark room. And so it became, the field work was so beautiful. And so it came so naturally for me. Like I just felt like I found my place in the world. And then the craft of the printing was this whole added thing that satiated my artistic cravings. And the whole thing just kind of came together.
Shout out to those teachers, mentors, therapists, whatever along the way that gives us that little, just think about this. This might be for you. And you're like, okay, yeah.
Just a little nudge on our twisting path.
Can change the trajectory so fast. It's crazy.
One thing I think this kind of speaks to what you were saying is, photography, really all of our creative endeavors really give you an outlet for your emotions, how you see, how you interpret the world, how that makes us all feel at a human level. And I've really admired your work for the way that you were able to capture even very quiet, subtle emotions. This is a lot different than how most people interpret photojournalism, that feels more like documentation rather than immersion in a moment, not as in your face, like a little quieter, a little softer. What do you think it is about your approach that creates that kind of emotional resonance in your images?
Wow, that's a big question and a cool question. I think it's because I truly want to connect with people, selfishly, because it's just one of the most beautiful things about this crazy life that we have as humans, that's so hard to understand and know why it's happening, what's happening and everything. But I think one of my biggest pleasures in life is connecting with people. And I hope if I'm successful, then that is getting reflected in my photography.
I remember reading somewhere that for women specifically, connection with other humans releases serotonin in our brains. So, of course, it feels good to connect, and that makes sense. Like, we're biologically designed to create other humans, so why wouldn't we want to connect?
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How has even, well, how is being a woman and then being a mother, shifted your perspective in your work, if at all?
I think as a business person, because that's also unfortunately what I am,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's really kicked my ass for my any sort of perfectionism that I was battling, has gotten demolished.
Like, there's no time for perfectionism.
Rated. And I think it's been really good for me because it's kind of like, oh, yep, that's done. All right, that's all I can do on that. I got to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like, there's less ruminating and less, and maybe that's probably just a product of aging too, like being through some stuff, you get better at it. But I definitely saw a rapid adjustment or shift in becoming a parent just because of that time crunch and how you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to divide time.
Sure. Yeah, like that sort of letting go to make room for other things that are, if not more or equally as important. You just sort of forced to have to. You're like, okay, well, this is done because it has to be in a good way.
And that's probably happening for all of us right now anyway, right? Like I don't think we even realize the amount of shift that's happened over the last 15 years of the stuff flying at all of us, and how do you manage it? It's overwhelming.
Yeah, I remember doing, like, I think the iPhone had just come out and everyone was like, this is amazing. It's like this beautiful camera in your pocket. I had done this storytelling workshop with a filmmaker, but he said, that it's quality over quantity. And I think about that now a lot. Like, I don't know if that's actually true anymore. How does that land with you? Not even that we're just pumping out garbage to people, but that the volume at which quality work is being pumped out has increased significantly.
I would completely agree that it's just unmanageable, and you see it everywhere. You see it with how publications are managing budgets. I mean,
Mm.
National Geographic, it's just increasingly decreased how
Yeah.
much time is spent, and the motivation for a story isn't about this like kind of higher purpose of being, um and I think a lot of places like this, universities, so everybody is like losing that higher purpose for what is
Mm.
being produced, and how a university class is being carried out. Like it's like, how can we
Mm.
do this as fast as possible for as cheap as possible and make the most money? And
Yeah.
it's pretty unfortunate.
How has that changed your work? I mean, aside from, the length of the assignments, maybe even the pay from the assignments, but like, how has that changed your approach to the work?
Mm, I think it's probably for all of everybody in the creative field, and then it's probably extends to all facets, right, of work, just in different ways. But in my little office, um, it's really hard. It's really hard. I don't feel like, maybe ask me in 10 years or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's
You're just in it.
just in it. And it's way less opportunity for surviving financially.
Mm.
Um, it's a fight, I think, it's a battle, I guess, give to find the space to give things the attention that they deserve. And yeah, it's just become part of the landscape. Is that battle is part of the landscape, I think, more so than it ever has been. I think it's always been a tension, but I think it's a real thing that I think could probably make a lot of people walk away from that.
Yeah.
I think for music, it's become such a free process for the consumer that artists just go, well, I need 7 days on recording the record, 90 days on figuring out how to roll this thing out. It's so much about how do I get people to care about it than it is how much do I care about this actual project. Like that's what it feels like. And that it's sad to me because I think like I talk about this with certain clients where it's like who are more mixing engineers and their job is to spend the time refining and making edits and making edits. And so their whole existence in the project is like, okay, you done yet? And it's kind of sad because that is where a lot of the heart and like what we want to communicate when we're taking a photograph or creating a song. That's the thing I think that gives something the stay power, but we're getting more and more disconnected to that.
Yeah, that resonates so much. It's so parallel, I think. That whole like 7 days to record it and 90 days to roll it out. It's like where the time is being spent is just so not part of the quality of the production, right? It's not. It's a weird place to put all the energy.
And it also, kind of putting the onus on the creative. Like it is now not only our responsibility to create the work or our desire, right? We want to create the work, but we also have to create the audience because our audience numbers translates to leverage that are the levers that control some of those dynamics, those partnerships, clients that we're working with, those timelines. It's like the more of an audience that we have, the bigger of a hold that we have on a lever because nobody's telling Beyonce you got to record an album in 7 days. She's taking as long as she wants. And that is a whole other side of your brain of, okay, well, how do I grow the audience to have that lever on top of creating the work? Have you found that to be the case for you as well, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, remember when that started happening? I mean, I am not an expert on any of this, but right, if we're just sitting here reflecting and we're all in creative industries, like to me, that started happening with Instagram.
Definitely.
And which would be the iPhone, like so the iPhone and then social media, Instagram, and all of a sudden the whole buzz was, okay, if you want to be a photojournalist, you have to have a brand. You have to brand yourself. And that was so contrary to why any of my generation and older and probably future generations too, but I feel like it's sort of like known now, like if you do it, that's what it is, that's what it's about. But like that was not the reason any of us got into it. And suddenly you're like, what? Like, I need to be on camera. I don't want to be on camera. I want to like
hide behind my camera.
hide behind my camera. Yeah, I'm here to highlight other people. I don't want to highlight myself. Like it's not something that I'm drawn to. It's so far from why I got into this work. And it's been really hard to put that shoe on, really hard. And I don't think I'll ever be able to claim any success with it. It's so hard. And it's unfortunate that's because it's so important for, I think, to have those outlets where people are telling stories, right? It's part of our democracy. Like this is journalism. This is one of the checks and balances on our whole system. And so you have to have people that are ready to do reporting, ready to interpret. And I think this just sort of kind of cheapens that it has to be part of that. But it's such a runaway train. I mean, I don't know how you reconcile it. I guess you still try to prioritize that in the next generation of like, we're here to tell other people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to report on something, to share something with the rest of the world. We're not here to say, hey, look at me, to navel gaze. We're here to, you have to bring yourself to the table because that's it just is what it is. If you're interpreting something, you're going to be bringing yourself there, but hopefully it's in the spirit of how am I going to celebrate this story or investigate this story, to be looking out.
And at the same time, while keeping the intimacy that you have with your craft, I think is the important part that really keeps the quality of the work what you want it to be, right?
Yeah, there's a blending there. There's a blending there for sure.
Let's talk about how, because, we're sort of talking about this time in our shared cultural experience and history, probably like 2010s, early 2010s. We have Instagram coming online, we have social media. And for still photographers, photojournalists, we see this big shift to motion, to film. What was going on in your career at that time when you decided to incorporate more film?
I think at some point, with, like you just said, with the integration of the iPhone and social media, which more easily incorporated motion and audio, like everything kind of, all these things that were out of reach, I think because of technology, suddenly became more and more accessible. Like all of a sudden, Canon came out with a 35 millimeter, the 5D, which you could make a little movie with, and it was beautiful. And I think the iPhone made audio more accessible. Like everything just started to, all these tools started to become way more accessible. The editing software, uh, everything just changed. So I think it was a big technology shift. And then while that was happening, I think the demands on visual journalists, which, that's kind of a newer term to consider yourself a visual journalist, but that's what I feel like best describes me and probably a whole cohort of us, right? Um, Suddenly it was less about, a specific kind of camera, but it was just like, how do you best tell the story? Does it need audio? Does it need some motion? Is it just still photographs? Is it video? Like it just became sort of like, here's the whole array of tools that we have. The palette became broader and more complex.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just kind of happened because that's just what was happening. I would say my particular shift to doing more video work was a lot led by my husband, Matt. He went back to grad school. He had a night fellowship at Ohio University, and it was specifically to go back and get more training on filmmaking. And that was in 2012 when he did that. And that led us into a documentary film that we started working on. He started working on it as a short film for his thesis project, and then it shifted into a joint project that got turned into a feature-length film.
That you worked on for over 10 years.
Years, yeah.
11 years.
Like, I'm not going to let you get away with that, missing that 1 year pipe.
Like that year was crucial.
Yeah, the last year was the hardest. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the film. So I'll just kind of give a little, or I can, let's let you give the recap of Inheritance, this 11-year film. Yeah, give us a little synopsis of it for the listeners.
Yeah, so it's really about the journey of Curtis, who we met when he was 12. This was Matt had spent time with the family prior to this, so there's quite a few years of footage before being with Curtis. But when the project took the shape of a feature-length film, it was when we met Curtis when he was 12. And we follow him, not consistently for 6 years, but we followed him until he was 18. And so the film has sort of this boyhood-esque thing because you watch him grow up on camera. And it's really about a family that is battling substance use disorder through the experience of Curtis, of a kid, and how a 12-year-old who is seeing his family through such clear eyes. He's not going to get into drugs. He's upset by every adult in his life is battling substance use disorder, and how he navigates those very tender years of getting to adulthood. And it's tragic, and there's a boatload of love in it. This family has a lot of love going on. And so the relationship, the humanity is pretty profound. Matt did almost all of the cinematography. We did some of the field work together, but we became parents right when we started it as a feature length film too. So there was a lot of tag teaming. I feel like my role was more producer, director, and Matt was director, cinematographer. And yeah, it's a hard watch, but it's an important watch. And we released it in 2024. It premiered at Slamdance, which is a sort of punk rockers um, film festival that happens right across the street from Sundance at the same time. Like
Amazing.
it was created literally to be sort of like a
in your face. Yeah.
yeah.
We love Slamdance.
Yeah, Slamdance is
That's
cool.
amazing.
And yeah, and it won Slamdance, which was great. It won the jury award there. And we've been on an interesting ride since then with other film festivals and then a whole host of impact screenings over the last year, a little over a year. We have an amazing impact producer, Twin Seas Media, Margot Farah, and her work has carved out this really profound impact distribution in a time where there's just no distribution. It's so hard to get a film out right now. And she found the path for it. And I think it's had a lot of impact in a very distinct audience, a niche audience that really wants to understand these stories. So social workers, teachers, these rural communities that are trying to figure out why so many people are dying from substance use disorder. And it's a little glimpse into how the mental health and the family structure and the reality of living rurally and what that means for access for mental health services, and then being a kid. And it's this whole it's not just about substance use disorder, it's about this whole stew of America right now, of lack of jobs, lack of community, um, lack of hope, and people feeling very alone. It's about race too. It's about all of it. But the film, we don't have any experts in it. We interviewed quite a few experts, but we ended up in the end not including them in the edit because we really wanted the audience to just be plopped in and follow the story. We didn't want to hold people's hands.
And I think, I mean, in my humble opinion, that seemed like a really smart move and congruent with the style of work that you create, that Matt creates, that really does emphasize the humanity of situations. And like I said before, kind of dropping you in um, and understanding, like holding all of the complexities of the situation at the same time. Like I really walked away from the film with a sense of like a humbled sweetness. You can see like the love that this family has for one another at the same time as all of these other complex and devastating circumstances continue to perpetuate this cycle of addiction. And what does that mean for the generations to come in this family?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
I think first and foremost, I just truly want to thank you for making it. Like, as someone who's been sober for almost 20 years in November, and I primarily work in substance abuse still.
Congratulations, David.
Thank you. I'm a substance abuse counselor, and so I've heard and seen tons of stuff and constantly do. And I think highlighting the fact that it's a family disease, I think is such an important thing because there's so many dynamics that change. Was there any sort of substance abuse draw personally to the story? And if not, what was it about Curtis or the family or the story itself that made you want to continue for 11 years?
That's a really good question. Like I grew up in chaos. I grew up around substance use disorder and chaos.
Okay.
Not a household as bad as Curtis's, but it was pretty bad.
Sure.
And I think all of us, I can't imagine, I don't think I've ever met somebody who hasn't been touched by some mental health stuff in their family too. Um, so I think that's part of it, but I don't know. I would say that one thing that drives Matt and me both, for better and for worse, because it's not a good business model, is stories that would otherwise not be told.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, doc films, they have to be a celebrity or true crime or some, or hopeful, it has to be something that's like, there's this really narrow, it goes back to that diminishing priority of a higher purpose for things, like where the larger movement is to reinforce, support, validate the stuff that's going to get the most clicks, get the most um, attention quickly. In this world where we're all inundated and it is hard to know where to put your attention, but it falls into that space where, okay, let's only support the films that are going to just get the clicks.
Yeah.
Not, okay, let's we need some we need some medicine with our diet of stories. There needs to be hope, there needs to be reality. Like we need to be able to tolerate, I think, all of it. And if left to just having money drive where the priorities are, I think it's just moving it towards our just one pathway for human consumption of stories and what's out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. I'm kind of
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think people don't want to think about it. Truly, they don't want to have to feel the need to even think that they should watch this. If there's nothing out there to watch, then they don't even have that pressure of like, this is important. I should learn more about this.
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately. But
I don't expect, I think you do need a reason to watch it. I think it does, it needs to be something like any of us, like what we choose to watch or not watch. There has to be some thing, but I think what's harder is to not have it for what the priorities are for supporting films that are out there. I think that they're, like public television has a responsibility, I think, to make sure that there's an array of stories that are being told. And I think that in other places, to have that priority of like, okay, here's a full buffet of stories
Mhm.
for audiences to pick up. And I think right now every outlet is just making it so much about how can we make the most money off of this, as
Yeah.
opposed to seeing themselves as that they're responsible for offering a whole sort of full palette of storytelling and getting the word out. And I think with the diminish of our of journalism,
Mhm.
of newspapers, of these outlets that have been so important for our communities to know about the town hall meeting, to know about what's going on with the school
Mhm.
board, and it's just disappearing. And so and I think newspapers did used to be like, we are responsible to tell these stories because we're covering our community. Whether somebody reads it or not, you can't really control it, but at least they have a duty to
Sure.
put it all out there. And I think a lot of these stories that are harder are getting lost in this pursuit of just money. And
Mhm. I'm going to ask a blunt question.
okay.
How are you making it work from a business perspective, telling some of the harder stories that still need to be told, continuing to be a creative, being in creative partnership with your husband? How does that work?
Um, I don't know. It's like, I don't want to say daily, but it's probably a weekly question of like, do we close it down? Do we shut it down and try to get a job?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like
That's real, yeah.
yeah. I mean, and not that that's that easy anyway, but I also I think I was fortunate enough to get a job in the last few years with teaching at Syracuse University, but the job didn't allow me to do my creative work. I would have had to like completely retire uh, as
Mhm.
a creative, and I just wasn't ready to do that. So it was actually kind of a gift to, because I think as a freelancer, you're always like, should I just get a job? This is so hard to like have to not only produce the work, but you're trying to get the work, and it's just a constant thing.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it was a gift to be put in that position of having a job and have been like, no way, I'll continue to be scrappy. Like I can do this, but I can't stop producing work. Like
Sure.
I'm just not ready to do that at this point. I'm not ready to retire. So to answer your question though, is how we do make it work. I don't know, Piper. Like it's literally every year. It's like, oh, okay, we've managed.
Yeah.
Uh,
A surprise. We're still here.
yep, we still did it.
Liter-
Uh, it's a, it's, it's a just a real patchwork of trying to shape shift and create new opportunities that still allow for us to do important work. And maybe we're coming in it in at a different, it's like the thing you said, David, about the 7 days to record the album and 90 days to figure out how to roll it out. Like those 90 days now are probably like changing all the time. Like what does it take to get it out there? What does it take to like make it happen or rethink it? And I'm gonna say that challenge has become really interesting. I mean, that's what you guys are doing with coaching. Like you're pivoting, you're trying to reinvent it, try to reframe it, try to, all of that. So I guess it's a lot of that. And and then also trying to think more locally right now too. I think with
Mhm.
everything going on with this horrible administration that we have,
Mhm.
that's destroying our democracy. I I also I think both Matt and I want to somehow have our work addressing that And even if it's in some quiet form, right now we're trying to get more involved with training youth here in Syracuse with storytelling, which hopefully continues to feed the next generation of journalists, people who are going out there and highlighting things and revealing things and investigating things. And it's not like a, marching in the streets moment, but it feels like something. So that's we have a lot of energy for that right now, given what's happening. And yeah.
It's exciting.
And totally necessary. It's like we will always need storytellers who are able to be objective and to share what is happening in all communities at all levels, not just with celebrities and MMA fighters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Now, you and Matt have your individual careers, and then you are also co-creatives, creative partners. How, even in today's landscape, having to kind of shape shift and like look at different opportunities or look at different entry points to opportunities, creating opportunities, what are the roles there? Sometimes it's really great to not be alone in figuring a lot of this out. But yeah, what are the roles there? Because, then you also have to say, okay, who's taking out the trash?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about that, Piper? Do you want to
Yes.
your session for us?
Got a little experience there as well.
For sure. Oh my gosh. I mean,
there.
when John and I ran the nonprofit, I mean, that was just like such a learning experience. Like we were in like an 800 square foot apartment, or maybe it was less than, it was like 500 square feet. Anyway, not big, not small. And I was like, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, this is nuts. You are forced to learn solid communication skills real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope you do.
Yeah. Yeah. But what has that experience been like for you? I mean, motherhood, an 11-year project, your own individual careers, creation of Salttown Productions. How do you divvy it up?
I don't think we're particularly great at it, but it always feels like a work in progress. I think there's natural roles that happen. I think I tend to fall into the like producer role, like I'm the one that ended up on QuickBooks, even though I'm horrible at math, but I'm the one that ended up there. So that ends up being my gig. Matt is really good at ideas. Like he's like, like Don Draper from Mad Men, like Moyer. Moyer's in the house, but he's really good at like coming up with pitches, and so that's like a real natural role for him. I don't, it just kind of gets divvied up, and then if there's discontent with how it gets divvied up, you try to revamp it and like organize, and I think in all of that shape shifting, those roles get shifted around as well. So it's a constant shape shift out there, shape shift in here. Yeah, I feel like we're just always flying by the seat of our pants, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like, really responding to like, what are your needs? What are the needs of the family? What are the creative needs of the individual, of the partnership? And that is always evolving because we are always evolving. So responding to that instead of, well, me, like I used to react to it a lot and to change that approach for sure, but letting it be an organic evolution.
Yeah, it probably would be hard to make it not organic. This is not we're not selling cookies. We're not like, okay, you bake the cookies and you let them cool and you package them up and you sell them. It's like, this morning we found out that if we want to do this one project, like we have to have the invoice. We thought we could have it in by next week, but we have to have this whole thing, this whole description and this layout and everything done by like today. So like, but if there's income involved, so, you go like, okay, can we make some money? Is it an important thing? Like you kind of ask these like top 5 questions, and then it's pretty clear, like, okay, that has to be a priority today. Like, okay, but we still need to pick up our kid from school and we got to get,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just like a daily, we probably could be better at making it more of like a monthly priority thing, but unfortunately sometimes it ends up being like a daily, or it shifts by the end of the day kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that really speaks to the lives of a lot of people who, there's multiple
Yeah.
entrepreneurs or creative or freelancers in the household.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, one of the things, like, I love asking storytellers this question. I think it can elicit some really interesting responses, but you've told a lot of stories. What is one story you haven't yet told, but maybe hope to someday in the near future?
That's an interesting question. God, I don't know. There's so many that I haven't told. There was a whole pitch that I worked on recently, uh for it was for National Geographic, and it ended up not going through. Like, it kind of went through and then it didn't, and there's been so much reorganization there that it kind of got lost in the chaos of that. And it was about the decline of the bird population.
Mm,
So in the last 50 years, we've lost 3 billion birds in the overall population. And I really wanted to tell that story.
yeah.
I wanted to tell that story. I feel like the humanity aspect of it, and what birds mean to us, and what the signaling of that is. And I just felt like all of the story points and the metaphors, and there just was so much to it, and they're so beautiful. And
Mhm.
um yeah, so maybe I can still figure out how to tell that story.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. I have someone I want to connect you with because one of my clients has a nonprofit. Well, make a long story short, she works with the EV industry to take EV charging stations in areas that are usually connected to stormwater waste management, which are good, like, migratory stopover spots for migratory birds to kind of reinvigorate the migratory bird population. It's called Pit Stop for the Birds.
Oh, cool.
I
And
love
she's
this.
amazing. She's in North Carolina, and she just is like a wealth of information and just very, very smart in how she is looking at, like, who are all the parties that are potentially impacted in a way that they either know or don't know, and how can I, like, bring them all together. So yeah.
Amazing. I would love to meet her. And that's what started to
So
happen when
cool.
I started to research the story. Is I found the stories was going to be about bird savers. So I was going to focus on individuals that were just rolling up their sleeves in their own little
Mhm.
community and making a difference. Like,
Mm.
there's some folks really making a difference in these little pockets and kind of highlighting them. I mean, there's a bigger thing that we can't control with climate
Yeah.
change, unfortunately. Uh, that's a really hard one to tackle, especially with it not being agreed upon. But there are other ways that you can make a difference.
Yeah. Amy, we've loved having you. This has been such an amazing conversation. I've been looking forward to it for so
Truly,
long. And
truly.
yeah,
Oh my God, thank you.
tell the
It's been our
listeners how to
pleasure.
find you, what to be on the lookout for, how to see Inheritance. Tell them all the things.
So, Inheritance is not available yet. We are working on that probably in the next 6 months. So, if you can go to our website, inheritancethefilm.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter. We send it every couple months. There's a lot of information on our website about the film and screenings that might be near you. We still have impact screenings that we're going to be in India at Indiana University in the fall, and back in Ohio in the fall. We've been doing a number of them in Ohio. And then my website is just my full name.com, amytoensing.com. And my Instagram feed is just at Amy Toensing as well. So it's pretty easy.
Way to grab that Instagram handle.
Right? We love consistency in handles, right?
I know. Well, I have a weird name, so I'm lucked out. I'm not like...
True.
Piper Watson on Instagram is like an 18-year-old cheerleader in Iowa. So
dang, those 18-year-old cheerleaders.
You were a little slow to the uptake there.
I was slow to the uptake. Oh, Amy, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you on again. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
You guys, for all the thoughtful questions. I feel so honored, and thank you.
Well, that's a wrap, my friends. And listen, our goal is to grow this community of creative, unconventional folks on the path less traveled. So if this episode hit home, help us work the algorithm gods by taking 30 seconds to follow and leave us a review. It truly helps more people find the show, and we'll see you next time.